My friends, welcome to this episode of the Outdoor Gear Review. I hope you all are doing well. For this adventure, we're out here at Lone Wolf Mountain, and I figured that we would do some gear testing together. In the back of the truck here, I have a tent from Polar. This is a 4-person pop-up style tent. A few weeks ago, I took the tent out for an overnight trip where it happened to rain. Part of the tent was exposed to rain, and I mean a very small part, less than 5%. But yet, that tent leaked in 3 locations. The weather today is wet, and this afternoon it's going to be stormy. So I figured we would come out here to Lone Wolf Mountain, we will set up that tent, and let's see together how well it performs in the rain. Already we know that it leaks, but the question is how bad will it leak when the tent is fully set up outside and it's exposed to rainfall. This should be a fun trip, and I thank you very much for joining me. As soon as it stops raining, we'll set up a tarp, we'll set up the tent, and we'll get this trip underway. As it stands right now, the rain is light and it should move out in about 20 minutes. Woo. Everybody, it is pouring out there. I've been in the truck for about 10 minutes now, and I have to say that I'm getting tired of being in here, so I'm going to grab my rain jacket, put it on, and set up a tarp over the back of the truck. Let's get out of here, everybody. I'm going stir crazy. So far, the rain continues to be light. Just enough to like soak you if you're out in it. But if you're underneath the canopy of the trees, it's not bad. As you all can see here, I have the tarp set up. Overall, I do like the setup that I've done, but now that I've looked at this setup, and considering the materials of this tarp, I'm going to replace one of the black poles with a silver pole. The silver poles are shorter. I'm going to take one of the longer poles, the black ones, and I'm going to set that up in the center of this tarp. And that's because this tarp is made from a sil nylon, and that means it is going to stretch. As this gets wet, it's going to stretch more and more. So having a pole in the center is going to keep that material nice and taut, and I can make adjustments to it anytime that I need to. With the center pole in place, I like this setup. This is going to work nicely. Now something to take note of is this. With this tarp setup, this side here is completely exposed. If I need to, I can take a tarp and I can seal this up. I do have extras with me. That is oftentimes something that you need to consider when you have a tarp setup. Just because you have a roof over your head does not mean you're going to stay dry. I've spoken about this numerous times in numerous episodes. You oftentimes have to think about the walls and which ways the moisture is being blown. In this case, the highest likelihood of wind-blown rain is to come from this direction. Anyways, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it is something that you need to pay attention to. The sun's coming out, it's still raining, and it is super, super humid. And just like that, the rain has stopped. It has stopped for now anyways. Today it is about 72 degrees. It's rather warm. It's also super, super humid. Here in a minute we'll go over the weather forecast and what we can expect from this wet weather trip. But for now, let's focus on the tent. This is from a company called Polar, and this is their 4-person tent. This is a pop-up style tent. It uses a very similar mechanism to that of the Gazelle tent. The exception is this has 2 sides that fold out with the frame. And once you have those locked into place, this forms an A-frame tent. So I put the fly on, it's staked out, everything's secure. This tent is now ready to go. I set it up underneath the tarp here because it was raining. That way I was able to keep it nice and dry. Now going back to the adventure that I did with this tent. Basically I was out here at Lone Wolf Mountain. I had a huge tarp set up and I set up this tent underneath it. Rain and storms came in, I left the fly on. Only one small piece of this tent was outside of the tarp getting wet. And yet the tent leaked from 3 locations. 3 locations, maybe 2% of the tent was exposed. That's why we are out here today. My plan is not to do an overnight trip, but you never know. I may end up staying inside of the truck or potentially even in the cabin that I have here on the property. The ultimate goal of this trip is to see just how bad this tent leaks. Because already we know, it leaks all over the place. But with the tent being fully exposed, how bad is it going to be? It might be laughable bad. I have no idea. Just in case you didn't see the wet weather episode with this tent, The Adventure, let me give you all a little bit of a backstory, okay? So after testing out the Gazelle tent, which is a 30-pound pop-up style tent, it's a rather poor shelter for summertime use. You can't keep the bugs out, the quality's terrible, it's expensive, it's heavy, it's also incredibly hot. After testing out that product and being disgruntled with it, I said that I was no longer going to test out large tents like that. Well, fast forward a few months, Susie comes across this tent on social media or something like that, and she likes it. She orders it from the company, she bought it with her own money, and I began testing it out. That's where we discovered that it leaks like crazy. A day or so after I got home from testing out this tent, Susie sent the company an email. And I have to say that their customer service, while very polite, very courteous, is extremely slow. We're talking about a response every 3, 4, 5 days, something like that. The last response came in maybe 4 days ago, I think. If you want more information about this tent, make sure to check out the rain episode that I did with it, The Adventure. I talk about the availability of this tent, when it's going to be in stock, and so on. So the tent's been set up, the tarp's been set up, we're in good shape. Let's go ahead and complete setting up camp here. right. Well, it's now dark again, and it's just lightly raining. I mean, just barely. So light you can't even see it. You can just hear it. Cheers, everyone. Let's take a second here and let's read the forecast for the area. This is impressive, or at least it was this morning. Today, rain totals 3/4 of an inch. Tonight, 1 to 2 inches of rain. Tomorrow, 1 to 2. Tomorrow night, 1 to 2. The next day, 1 inch. The next night, 1 inch. In total, this week, this area is forecasted to see as much as 1 foot of rain. 12 inches. I told you before, folks, this place gets a ton of rain. I'm not exaggerating. It's just about every single day. And I am incredibly thankful for it. I love the rain, I love storms, I love testing out gear. I love being able to provide you all with information about products. What's good, what's bad, how it fails, why it's good, why it's great, so on and so forth. This is going to be interesting. As I mentioned before, we know already it leaks. So how bad is it going to be? I don't know. My plan is not to leave this tent out for the duration of this rain event. What we want to do here is a realistic test, right? A few hours of heavy rainfall, maybe even a day of rainfall, but nothing more than that, right? Again, it goes back to the fact that we already know this tent will leak. So let's get it out into some heavy rain and we'll see what we're looking at with this tent. By the way, everybody, what is the symbol on this tent? What is the logo here? I'm assuming that's a tree with an eye in the center. I know what you're thinking, right? Illuminati, back of the dollar sort of thing. Maybe you're not thinking that, I don't know. The weather today cannot make up its mind. It rains, it stops, it gets sunny, warms up, gets dark, rains, repeats. So far, no storms, nothing like that. But it's coming, supposedly. I went ahead and made lunch, which is reindeer stew. Oh yeah. Still pretty hot, but it's almost ready. I was thinking, while I was sitting here waiting on lunch to get ready, I would tell you all about the weather conditions here in the mountains of North Carolina. And this is why I love the mountains so much. The average temperature in this area yearly is 51.4 degrees Fahrenheit. The hottest days are usually in the lower 80s, and the temperature will climb into the 90s once or twice every 3 years. The warm season lasts 3.7 months, and that ranges from May 25th to September 15th. Now, of course, temperatures vary. So in the summertime, we're looking about 70 to 80 degrees. In the wintertime, negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, all the way up to 30 degrees. That's typical. Let's eat, everyone. As far as the time goes, it's about 2:30. And this says it is 66 degrees. It definitely feels better than earlier today, that's for sure. Yeah. This is incredibly good. You can order these from the Real Termite website. You should try one. They are expensive. Shipping's gonna cost quite a bit, but try one. These are some of the best backpacking meals out there. I just wrapped up lunch, which was excellent. Now I'm going to collect some firewood so I can have a fire later on this afternoon. With the temperatures dropping, especially this evening, a fire is going to be nice. Before I begin collecting firewood, let's talk about my solid fuel kit. What I have here is an Esprit stove, a lighter, a couple packs of matches, and there's some hexamine, and I have various sizes. That way I can cover my needs in the outdoors. I could do a long duration burn or a shorter one, depending on what I'm doing. And I keep all of these components inside of this pouch, which is from Vanquist. My style when it comes to outdoor gear is to keep everything highly organized. That's why I use kit bags. This pouch here works perfectly as a solid fuel kit. I also have a smaller one, which is my fire kit. These pouches allow me to stay highly organized. That way in the outdoors, I know exactly where every single component is, and nothing ever gets lost. I grab a pouch, I take out what I need, I use it, and I put it back. That way nothing ever gets lost. If you decide to make yourself a solid fuel kit like I have here, make sure to keep your hexamine inside of a Ziploc bag. That's because this stuff stinks. Like, it smells really bad. It smells like shrimp. So a Ziploc bag, it's gonna help a lot. It's not going to eliminate odors 100%, but it's going to help big time. I was just about to run out and begin collecting firewood, and you can hear it, it's raining. I have no idea how long this is going to last, but it's definitely coming down. And this is the heaviest rain so far of this trip. I'm looking at the radar here, and finally we have some action coming our way. Right now we have light rain, but behind all of that we have some heavy rain and also some thunderstorms. All of that is coming this way. I can't wait to see how poorly this tent does. I guess that's what this episode's all about, isn't it? I mean, we know it leaks already, so whatever. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. After looking at the radar and seeing that heavier rain is on the way, I decided to be proactive and go ahead and set up a wall here. So the entire time that I've been out here, anytime that it got breezy, it was moisture being blown this way. So I went ahead, I put up this wall, I anchored it with some sticks out of the forest, and I tell you what, it's doing a fantastic job. With this wall up, I'm not feeling anything coming through. No wind, no moisture. At this moment, that's a bad thing because it's rather hot. So the wall's ready to go. All I have to do is attach it. But until I need it, I can take it down. And that's what I'm going to do. When I have a tarp shelter that I have to put walls on it, I call it a fortress because essentially that's what it is. You have the protection overhead and you have the walls as well. It's all about keeping the elements out, keeping yourself safe, keeping yourself dry. With this wall here, it's ready to deploy. I mean, as soon as it gets nasty, hook, the wall's up and I have protection. Just in case you're wondering, the gray tarp that you see here is not actually a tarp at all. It's a ground sheet for some nature hike tent. Oftentimes, when it comes to like inexpensive tents, they come with ground sheets, which that's great. The thing is, oftentimes they're really, really heavy. I very rarely use them for that purpose, but they make excellent tarps. For myself, it's all about repurposing gear and using it in a better way. In this case, it makes a fantastic tarp where it makes a rather heavy ground sheet. We're about 10 minutes to 6 o'clock and it is 64 degrees. Finally, we have some real rain. Not super heavy, but good enough. It's only taken all day long for real rain to begin. It's kind of funny, the forecast was for like heavy rain all day long. That unfortunately did not materialize. We've had light rain, that's it. Here in a little bit we'll have dinner, and I'll tell you what, we'll still have a fire. I do have some dry firewood behind the cabin, so I can grab that if I need to. I have that just in case of an emergency, just like this. The rain just slacked off a little bit, so I've crawled inside of the tent here to take a look, and already it's leaking. Already it's leaking, and it really hasn't even rained. The rain today has been super light, and yet it's leaking in 2 places. The other night when I was inside of this tent, it was leaking on that side. This time, it's leaking on this side. The odds are it's actually leaking on that side, but it's not dripping against the mesh. It's running down the fly. But on this side, it's actually running down and dripping onto the mesh. That way we can see it. So on this side here, it's dripping down onto the mesh. On this side here, it's dripped down and it's actually on the floor. It's going to be really hard to see it, not only because there's not much there, but because of the color of this tent. Inside of here, as you can see, it is like bright orange. It messes with the camera pretty bad. But nonetheless, I can tell you there's water on the floor here. I know I shouldn't be surprised, but I am. I'm surprised that it's leaking already. And the thing is, it really hasn't been raining hard. That goes to show that this tent has a serious flaw. The simple fact is, it cannot keep you dry. This tent is simply not waterproof. My friends, it is dinner time. What I have here is barbecue salmon with mango salsa. It smells incredible. I wasn't really sure if I was going to like this, but based upon the smell alone, oh yeah. So here we go. That is amazing. I looked at the radar and there's absolutely nothing on there at the moment. The thing is this, we are now under a flood watch that begins tonight, I think. Maybe in the morning tomorrow, let's see. It begins 6 a.m. tomorrow, so the forecast for this entire trip has changed somewhat. Initially, the heavy rain was supposed to move in tonight, but that's no longer the case. It's going to be tomorrow morning. 3 to 6 inches of rain locally are expected, with some locations getting up to 12 inches. It still says 1 to 2 inches of rain tonight. I don't know. Who knows, folks? No clue. That is definitely how it goes. Anytime that I'm relying on a forecast, it always blows up in my face. It does. Over the last couple of months, I've received quite a few questions about canvas tents, like the really large canvas tents, the hot tents. Those are systems that really don't work that well in environments like this. You have to consider that it's a canvas material, and then factor in the amount of rainfall that we get in this area. Picture a tent that weighs 40, 50, 60, and there's some that even weigh more than that. Then factor in a ton of moisture, right? A soaking wet canvas. Tents like that are a true handful, right? They work best for like resorts, hunting expeditions, and so on. They really don't work well for like just typical camping trips. I have quite a bit of experience with systems like this in my area, namely because of friends of mine who have purchased them. Every single person has ended up selling them if they could. Not all of my friends were able to sell those tents because size is a problem, weight is a problem, cost is a problem. Those systems are super heavy, hard to maneuver, some are difficult to set up, and they require a ton of care, especially in wet environments like this. If you want to get a canvas tent, I would recommend them for dry environments or cold environments. Like if you want to use one out in the snow, that makes sense, but for wet environments, those type of tents do not work that well. The same applies for rooftop tents like those that you would put on your truck or SUV. They simply do not work that well in wet environments like this, and that's why rooftop tents are uncommon in this area. My friends, it's about 2:30 in the morning. I've been hearing thunder for the last 10 minutes or so. Because of that, I decided to hop outside of the truck. Been watching the sky here, seeing some flashes. I looked at the radar, there's a wave of storms coming this direction, but based upon their track, I think it's gonna go to our east. It's gonna be really, really close. I think we'll get some rain, but I don't think like the brunt of the storm is going to hit us. Not yet. Later on this morning, I think it's possible, but for now, I think we'll hear some thunder, we'll see some flashes, and we'll get some rain. It is now 6 o'clock in the morning. It's raining heavily outside, and I finally feel content with the rain test that I've done for this polar tent. At the same time that I'm filming this adventure, I'm also filming a rain test. So the entire time my focus has been on this tent and the rain that's been coming in. Like it had to hit a certain threshold to be a really good test for this product. So we're finally there. It took all day, all night, all morning, but we've done it. Taking a look at the radar, we have heavy rain for the next couple of hours, and then it may slack off a little bit afterwards, but that's just a maybe. With systems like this, it's constantly changing, and just because there's nothing on the radar now doesn't mean there won't be in 5 minutes. In addition to the tent leaking, we also have another leaking product, and that's this Fjallraven tarp. Folks, I don't remember how much this tarp costs, but it's a lot. The unfortunate truth is that this product is leaking. There's one main seam through the center of this tarp, and it's leaking through the entire thing, the entire run. That is a shame. This is the 10x10 version, and I paid $164 for it. It would not even surprise me if it's more expensive now. But that's a lot of money for a tarp that's not waterproof. Especially when you consider, like, there's inexpensive tarps out there that will never ever leak. Take the OneTigris tarp, the bulwark or whatever they call it. I mean, that thing's like $40, $30 or $40, and it's never leaked. That's ridiculous. The question is, what do we do this morning? It's 6 o'clock already. It's a little bit too late into the morning to go to bed. But then again, I really didn't sleep at all last night because I was filming this, I was filming that. So, I'll tell you what. Why don't we go ahead, let's get a fire going. We can at least enjoy some warmth this morning before wrapping this up. Woo! Everybody, it is pouring out there. It is absolutely coming down. Coffee's made, the fire feels good. It's a nice morning. Cheers, my friends, cheers. This is nice. As far as the time goes, let's see what it is. It is now just about 7 o'clock. And it looks like it's going to be raining rather hard for the next hour or so. And then there should be a break. And at that point in time, we'll check on that tent. It's a little bit too early for breakfast, I think. This is definitely what I need right now. Again, I did not sleep very much last night. I think I got maybe 2 hours total, something like that. Surprisingly enough though, I feel great. While I'm thinking about it, folks, I want to give 2 shout outs. Jason, thank you so much for the coffee and the pins. You are the man. And Greg, thank you so much for the chocolate. I really do appreciate it, buddy. With the products that I'm testing out in this adventure, it really goes to show that just because it's expensive doesn't mean that it's great. I mean, this tarp here, we're talking about high quality materials, but these materials have issues. As I mentioned before, this is a silicone treated nylon, a sil nylon, and it stretches like crazy. There are variations in the denier, and I'll talk about all of this stuff in the future. In other words, some versions of sil nylon will stretch more so than others. But this is a very expensive tarp, and yet it's leaking. It's not waterproof. That tent over there, very expensive, 300 bucks. Not waterproof. Isn't that funny? That's one of the reasons why I've been focusing on reviewing like more budget-friendly gear. I made it my mission to find the best quality, common man gear. Gear for you and I. Not everybody's going to go out and buy a $700 tent. For a lot of people, it simply doesn't make any sense. Not everyone's a thru hiker, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, the heavy rain ceases. It's still raining out there, but it's not super heavy. And here in a minute, we'll check on that tent. We have definitely had some leaking with this tent. The inside material, the body, is wet on this side here. It does not appear to be wet on this side. What I'm noticing here is that the floor of the tent is wet. There's little water drops all over the place, and I can see that in this corner over here there's actually a little bit of pooling. This area here is wet. You can see all of those water drops. Over here in this corner there's quite a bit of water. It's definitely leaking from this point here. And it's leaking from this point here as well. Additionally, this side of the tent is soaked. And we have small water drops on the floor. Oh yeah, actually, this side here has been leaking as well. To be honest, I thought it would be worse, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. For $300, this tent has a lot of problems. It's leaking from all over the place. I mean, more places than I can count. Let's actually try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At least 6 locations. For a tent that costs this much money, that's unacceptable. Well, 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 folks. The Polar tent leaked from all over the place. In total, I counted 6 locations that it was leaking from. That's what I expected. No, that's not correct. I actually expected it to be much, much worse. In the end, this tent is not waterproof, and in my opinion, it's not worth $300. Maybe if the company can make some fixes on this, right? I don't know if it's a defect with their manufacturing process, or it's a quality control issue, I'm not sure, but hopefully the company can correct the problems with this tent. At the same time, I hope they can lower the price of this, because, again, this is a $300 tent that's made from, like, the cheapest polyester out there. In the end, I simply do not recommend this tent. It's not waterproof, it costs too much, and the materials are cheap, super cheap. Anyways, folks, I am done. I'm going to say goodbye for now. I really do appreciate you all joining me for this trip. It really means a lot. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you so much for the friendship over the years. I really do appreciate it. Thank you all so much for the support as well. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the thumbs up. Next week, we'll be back in the forest, off trail, doing some exploring, and you never know. It might be raining. More than likely it will be. That's kind of how it goes around here, you know what I mean? Since the previous overnight adventure, I've wanted to get this tent out into the rain to see just how bad the leaking would be. We have done that. Ultimately, this was an awesome rain event. And the thing is, it's only getting started. We are now under a flood watch, and that lasts until Thursday, and it is currently Tuesday morning. My friends, no fancy outros. I'm just gonna say goodbye. Be good, be safe, strength and honor. Bye, everybody.